If you're quiet, you know how hard it can be to get traction in social situations when bigger and louder personalities drown you out. In this video, we're breaking down 3 tactics that quiet guys like Tom Hardy and Keanu Reeves use to hook and hold attention. We'll also be stealing a trick that was so powerful it helped get a prime minister elected. First, we're talking about setting the tone. If you're quiet, it pays to make an energy investment early in the conversation so you can set the tone. Otherwise, you run the risk of others disengaging from you, or if you're in a group, being crowded out by louder and larger personalities. The energy level Keanu uses when he enters this press conference is a perfect example. Your energy investment doesn't have to be huge, and it shouldn't be fake. It can be something as simple as slightly exaggerated body language, or smaller things like being quick to smile or shaking hands and making eye contact with each person in the room if it's appropriate. Zendaya is a self-described introvert and often uses both strategies. She comes in with higher energy and uses lots of the smaller gestures like being quick to smile. If we go back to Keanu, he almost always takes time to acknowledge the audience. This kind of acknowledgement is the on-stage version of shaking hands and making eye contact. It makes people feel good, so they want to pay attention. A good rule of thumb is to come in one energy level higher than the average person would in that situation. Before we move on, it's worth clarifying what tone is and why you should control it whenever possible. You can think of the tone as a radio station. When you set the tone, you select the station, which sets people's expectations and keeps them hooked. When big and loud personalities control the tone, they tend to paint things with a broad brush and wash out the details. That doesn't work well for a quiet person because the details are where they shine and add the greatest value to the conversation. So the question is, how does a quiet person control the tone beyond making their initial entrance, as we've already discussed? Here are 3 easy to implement strategies you can start using today. First, radiate positive energy. This can sound like a woo-woo suggestion, but it works. Humans are herd animals. We want to fit in with our peers, and it's not just a comfort thing. We're hardwired to do it. We have something called mirror neurons, whose job it is to help us mimic the behaviors of those around us so we can fit in. What does this have to do with radiating positive energy? If you engage in socially rewarding behaviors that feel good, like open body language, eye contact, smiling, and laughing, you give others permission to do the same and feel as good as you do. Second, be a likable listener. Being a likable listener is a criminally underrated skill. Likable listeners have a superpower. They make people feel special, and there's no greater tool for building connection. There are 2 keys to being a likable listener: leading with curiosity and allowing yourself to have genuine positive reactions. So that means you can't fake it. Everyone can smell fake interest a mile away. So if you can't fake it, make it interesting. And the easiest way to do that is to ask interesting questions. For example, instead of asking what someone does for a living, ask them their favorite thing about their job or how they got into their profession. So you work in marketing? What's your favorite part about what you do? This takes the burden of the conversation off of the other person. It turns it into an opportunity for them to speak about themselves, which most people love to do. And it lets you listen and be impressed by them. Instead of a verbal ping pong match that boringly nudges the ball back and forth, you get to make them feel incredibly special, which leads us to the prime minister trick I mentioned earlier. Benjamin Disraeli and William Gladstone were political rivals in the late 1800s. Disraeli was Britain's prime minister, and Gladstone was vying for his position in the upcoming election. Jennie Jerome, who was Winston Churchill's mother, happened to dine with Disraeli and Gladstone on consecutive nights. When asked about her impressions of the 2 men, Ms. Jerome said, "When I left the dining room after sitting next to Gladstone, I thought he was the cleverest man in England. But when I sat next to Disraeli, I left feeling that I was the cleverest woman." Who do you think won the election? Benjamin Disraeli. The second half of being a likable listener is to have genuine positive reactions, which means to laugh easily. When you laugh with others, you give them a compliment that says, "Thank you for making my life a little bit better today." And that feels unbelievably good because you're giving them your stamp of approval, which is priceless in social settings. The third strategy is to assume positive intent when a comment or a conversation is ambiguous. This doesn't mean you shouldn't stand up for yourself if someone is obviously putting you down. What it means is not to jump to negative conclusions when the intent of the comment isn't clear. Brie Larson's Wired interview is a classic example of assuming negative intent.
Would Brie Larson work out? Like, hypothetically, would I at some point? Is that like a personal attack or something? Or is that a request? Do you think I should? Yeah, I work out a lot. Thanks for asking.
Assuming negative intent is a low-status response that makes you come across as lacking confidence and emotionally immature. Assuming positive intent does the opposite. Not only is it psychologically healthier, it also tells the world that what you think of yourself is far more important than what other people might think of you, which is a powerful place to stand. Next on the list is telling your stories with your body. Keanu Reeves is the master of telling stories with his body rather than just his voice. He often starts his stories with a quick little hand rub that lets you know something good is coming. Having a tell like this provides multiple benefits. It lets people know that you have something interesting to say, and it works as a physical cue that prepares you to tell the story. Now that second one might not seem like a big deal, but your body language lives on a two-way street. It's not only sending messages to the outside world, it's also sending them to your nervous system. And when you give your nervous system notice, even if it's only a split second, it's easier to match your energy to the story you're telling, which makes the story more engaging. When Keanu tells a story, he doesn't just use his hands. He uses his entire body, which works like magic for people who are more soft-spoken, like he is. Take a look at this clip of him describing his experience riding a horse for John Wick.
Yeah, I have to come off the saddle. You're supposed to fall under it, hold onto the pommel. Excuse me.
It's fine.
And then shoot some guns.
Using your whole body provides 3 valuable benefits. The first is that movement grabs attention. Our eyes are wired to focus on movement. So when you tell a story that incorporates movement, you're not only making yourself and your story more interesting, you're taking advantage of biology to hook and hold your audience's attention. Second, it paints a picture. When you use movement, you make it easier for others to get in on the story. Instead of asking them to imagine something from scratch, you transport them there by showing them what it was like instead of telling them. Third, using your body takes up space. And when you take up physical space, you also take up attentional space. Using your body sends the message that you deserve to be there, and that what you're sharing is interesting enough to be worthy of their attention. The last chapter of this video is about knowing and standing by your values. If you're quiet, it's easy to feel like you need to impress other people when you have their attention, because if you don't, you might not get another chance, right? That's a recipe for desperation, one of the least desirable messages you can send in any conversation. The remedy is leaning on your values. If I had to guess, I'd say that one of Tom Hardy's core values is authenticity. Watch this clip of him talking about his struggles with addiction. He doesn't gloss over it, sugarcoat it, or paint himself as a victim. He owns it.
And where did you think that came from for you?
I don't know. I think my personal issues to do with, alcoholism or anything like that, it's indiscriminate. I don't know if it's nature or nurture or where it came from. It just is, and it's what I have, and I have to deal with it on a daily basis.
And do you feel you're winning?
Yeah, today is a very, very good day for Tommy Hardy, yeah.
He does something similar in this clip of a reporter asking him about his sexuality. This time, he makes it clear that he thought the line of questioning was inappropriate and uninteresting. If you look at the other people's reactions on stage, you can tell they were far more uncomfortable with the situation than him.
But given interviews you've done in the past, your own sexuality seems a bit more ambiguous. Do you find it hard for celebrities to talk to media about their sexuality?
What on earth are you on about?
I was referring to an interview given to Attitude magazine a few years ago.
But what is your question?
I was wondering if you find it difficult for celebrities to talk about their sexuality.
I don't find it difficult for celebrities to talk about their sexuality. Are you asking me about my sexuality?
Sure.
Why?
Why?
Thank you.
Okay.
He leaned on his values and remained authentic. Keanu also consistently leans on his values, and it seems like one of those values is giving rather than taking credit. He does it in every single interview when he's praised, like these.
I am not here without working with such talented, beautiful artists and people. To work with Angelica Houston and Halle Berry, Mark Dacascos.
This is
Asia
the reaction of what the
Dillon.
nicest guy in the world would
Anyway,
do, by
let's
the
come
way.
on
isn't it?
anyway.
On the surface, it might appear that he's just being polite and doing what's expected. But if that was the case, why would he create a cancer foundation without taking credit for it or naming it after himself? Why would he give the stunt crew of John Wick 4 Rolexes or the stunt crew of The Matrix Reloaded Harley Davidsons? The short answer is he wouldn't. He values celebrating others more than celebrating himself. He and Tom both lean on their values, and if you haven't picked up on it yet, knowing your values runs deeper than setting the tone of a conversation or using your body language to tell great stories. Your values define who you are more than anything else because they're the foundation of your behavior. The trouble is, 9 out of 10 people on the street couldn't give you a straight answer if you asked them about their values. Being one of the few who knows and stands by their values is incredibly magnetic. Do you know yours? If you don't, and you want to uncover them, I created a totally free workbook based on the most current psychology that will help you understand yourself and clearly define your core values. To get it, all you have to do is click on the link in the description below. Now to quickly recap our 3 strategies. First, it pays to intentionally set the tone of a conversation whenever possible. Radiating positive energy, being a likable listener, and assuming positive intent will help you stand out in all the right ways. Second, using your body to tell stories is like magic. It hooks and holds attention. And third, knowing and standing by your values is one of the most important things you can do for your confidence and well-being. And you can get access to my free workbook by clicking the link in the description below. I hope you enjoyed this video, and we'll see you next time.